Jump in faster, jump in faster.
Run, run, run.
The drone is flying faster, faster.
This is how, under artillery shelling, airstrikes, and the risk of becoming victims of Russian drones, the Ukrainian police special unit White Angels evacuates civilians in the Donetsk region from frontline settlements. Gennady Yudin leads these groups. He himself is originally from Avdiivka. Before 2014, he served in the police, but after the start of Russian aggression against Ukraine, he left his hometown with his family. 3 years later, he returned to service, this time in the ranks of the National Police.
Since 2022, from the beginning of the full-scale invasion, when very heavy shelling of the city of Avdiivka began, the functions of the police changed, and we began to help people both with evacuation and the removal of the bodies of the deceased, providing first aid and delivering humanitarian aid to the city.
In 2022, Gennady joined the National Police evacuation units. At first, the main risks in the work were Russian artillery and aviation. Now, however, drones pose a deadly threat. They still remember one of the most difficult call-outs in the summer of 2025 in Pokrovsk.
A hostile Molnia drone just struck. They were evacuating wounded civilians from Pokrovsk who were in very critical condition.
He says that every subsequent evacuation is different from the previous one. Often, everything does not go according to plan because the Russians are conducting what is known as hunting for evacuation groups.
I remember when we started leaving Pokrovsk in the Donetsk area, a Russian Molnia UAV attacked us with a fragmentation munition. The vehicle was damaged. My colleague from the White Angel unit was also wounded.
The White Angel crews often become targets for Russian drones. Everyone understands. The next trip could be the last. But they cannot leave people in danger. Gennady says the biggest motivation to keep working is the emotions and words of gratitude for the work done.
When you evacuate people from that hell, from Kostiantynivka, from Druzhkivka, they are completely silent. When we are in the car, they cannot say anything. And then, when we arrive in a safe city, you see it in their eyes. They hug us, and with tears in their eyes they say, "Thank you guys for getting us out."
The White Angel special police units continue their work, saving civilians in the Donetsk region from Russian aggression.
By their courageous example, the guys from the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the National Police, the National Guard, and the State Emergency Service of Ukraine show us how one must never lose heart, but instead continue to move forward towards our common victory.
Dmytro Hlushko from the Donetsk region for the Freedom TV channel.
Frontline communities in the Sumy region have received a new batch of equipment from Sweden to protect energy infrastructure. The humanitarian aid package, weighing more than 28 tons, consists of protective structures and special containers. The Ukrainian Ministry of Energy reported that the aid will be provided to the most affected communities. Latvia will allocate about 200,000 euros for energy support to the Chernihiv region. The money will go towards purchasing 12 diesel generators. This was announced by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Latvia, Baiba Braže. She emphasized that Riga aims to strengthen Ukraine's energy resilience despite the terrorist attacks by the Russian Federation. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry thanked Latvia for the new aid package, which will significantly help Ukrainians get through the coming winter.
This support will make a significant contribution to strengthening Ukraine's energy resilience and preparing for winter. I thank Latvian Foreign Minister Baiba Braže and all our Latvian friends for their unwavering support of Ukraine. Andriy Sybiha, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on the social network X.
16 strategic targets on the territory of the Russian Federation were hit over the last 24 hours. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky noted, Kyiv is depriving the Kremlin of resources for the war. Last night, defense forces attacked one of the largest oil refineries in the Russian Federation and Lukoil facilities. A fire broke out at a plant in Nizhny Novgorod, which has a capacity of about 17 million tons of oil per year. According to Zelensky, among the Russian targets hit are also airfields, missile units, and infrastructure used for strikes.
Belarus is building a new military training ground with a railway. The infrastructure is being created near Gomel, close to the border with Ukraine. As follows from documents that have come into the possession of the Association of Railway Workers of Belarus, the client for the new facility is the Military Design Institute. The blueprints show a separate access track designed for 60 rail cars and a cargo platform with a ramp. It is needed for the rapid unloading of heavy-wheeled and tracked vehicles directly from military trains, writes the Belarusian Service of Radio Liberty. In turn, the spokesperson for the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, Andriy Demchenko, emphasized that Ukrainian intelligence is closely monitoring the situation in Belarus. No troop groupings have been recorded near the border so far, however, the threat from Belarus remains, and Minsk itself is actively contributing to this.
Despite the fact that Lukashenko has repeatedly stated that he does not plan any aggressive actions against Ukraine, at the same time he continues to build up military infrastructure in the direction of our border. The railway line under construction is one of the facilities that can be used for military purposes, just like the training ground. In general, Belarus is increasing the number of places where personnel and logistics routes can be accommodated, and the formation of a brigade and the creation of military infrastructure and logistics facilities for it is not happening quickly, but at the same time this work on the territory of Belarus does not stop.
Ukrainian border guard spokesperson Andriy Demchenko told Ukrainska Pravda,
203 times over the past day, the Russian army attempted to break through the Ukrainian defense. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the situation remains most tense in two directions. On the Pokrovsk sector of the front, the Ukrainian Defense Forces stopped 36 enemy attacks, and on the Kostiantynivka bridgehead, they repelled another 24 assaults by Kremlin troops. Analysts remind us, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Putin has already set separate deadlines for the capture of the entire Donbass 15 times. However, the Russian army has not fulfilled a single one of these Kremlin orders.
The latest one was to complete these tasks by the end of this year. And here, under the pressure of our defenders, they were forced to smoothly push it back to the beginning of next year and so on. So this approach continues. This is thanks to the Organization of Defense, Active Defense, here towards the Oleksandrivka direction, where there are 26 settlements towards Huliaipol, and in Orikhiv as well, 4 settlements were liberated.
Experts note significant successes of the armed forces of Ukraine in the southern operational zone and in the destruction of Russian logistics. Successful strikes are called the trump card of Ukraine's defense forces, which affects the resource capacity of the Russian army, which is forced to switch to defense in some sectors. But despite the losses in manpower and equipment, Russian commanders are still trying to fulfill Moscow's occupation plans in the south of Ukraine.
The conversation has turned to Mala Tokmachka again. I want to say that Mala Tokmachka is under the control of the defense forces, and those attempts at so-called flag planting usually end in body bags for the Russians. That's in the best case scenario. Therefore, it is obvious today that the defense forces are succeeding in many operations. I will say it again. These are counterattacking actions by our defense forces.
Russia has already lost more than 1,480,000 troops since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Of these, 1,450 invaders were eliminated over the past 24 hours, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reports. Also, over the past 24 hours, 7 tanks, a dozen armored combat vehicles, and 74 Russian artillery systems were burned, and 4 MLRS, air defense systems, and 9 robotic complexes of the Kremlin army were destroyed. The enemy will also be missing nearly 2,000 drones and more than 500 units of automotive and special equipment.
Romania scrambled military helicopters today due to an aerial target on the border with Ukraine. As reported by the country's Ministry of National Defense, radars detected a target approximately 8 kilometers north of the city of Vilkov in the Odesa region. This is near the border with Romania. At that time, the Ukrainian Air Force had just reported a Russian drone attack on the Odesa region. The Romanian side did not report any violation of its airspace.